Hi, ladies and gentlemen. It's Mrs. Beauchamp. I'm just here to give you a quick rundown on the Protestant Reformation. I'm going to go through this really quickly because I have a 15-minute time limit, but you can review, rewind, go back, pause, whatever you need to do. All right. First thing, looking here at this sort of tree of religion, this really is kind of showing you the way that religion has changed and transformed over the years, from Judaism into the Great Schism, Lutheranism, Orthodoxism, and you could see how many different branches of Christianity actually exist in the world today. But let's go back to the moment where the Roman Catholic religion split from the Protestant religion. All right, so what you have here are the causes of the Reformation: social, political, economic, and religious. I suggest that you take a moment, pause the video, read through these because they'll give you sort of big picture ideas about what you're going to be looking for throughout the presentation. So, long story short, let's go back to the Middle Ages. We know in the Middle Ages, the Catholic Church was the dominant religion in Western Europe, pretty much had complete control over the people. The Catholic Pope during this time becomes the most important political leader as well as a religious leader. Remember, the church was really the only unifying force in the Middle Ages. Um, on the actual manners themselves, priests held a lot of power because they held the power of the sacraments over the people. It simply was that if you didn't do what the church said, your options were really to go to hell or do what the church said and go to heaven. So people in this particular time period were extremely religious. The afterlife was much more attractive than the current life that people were living. And so the fact that most people were illiterate played into, and I hate to say it that way, but played into the hands of these priests who could basically interpret the Bible and tell people what God's message was. This is going to change when the Protestant Reformation comes around. Now, Catholic Church really had some good ideas in terms of, you want to be a good person, you've got to do good things. That's how you get access to heaven. You have faith in God and you do good things for others. Sounds pretty simple. One of the ways that you could achieve these God's grace was, of course, through the 7 sacraments, which you see listed right here. The 2 most important are going to end up being like baptism and communion. Okay, but we say this all the time, like, as power grows, so does the potential for corruption. And this happens in the Catholic Church, not necessarily because the religion was corrupt, but the people who were in power were becoming increasingly corrupt. One of the tenets of Roman Catholicism was that priests needed to remain chaste. They weren't supposed to have relationships. Many of these men did have relationships and ended up fathering children, even as high as the office of the Pope. Priests were supposed to go through a training protocol, and a lot of times wealthy family members purchased church positions, and that's called simony. And what this meant was, you're going to have a series of individuals who have all of this religious authority but no religious education. So you have the practice of simony, which is buying a position in the Catholic Church, and then you have this lay investiture, which was simply, hey, can you give my kid a job? All right. So, here are the people that are supposed to be the most educated individuals in medieval Europe are now in some ways the least educated. And so, of course, they're going to not really promote a lot of their religious doctrine. One of the practices that loses its intent, and I say that very, very carefully, it loses its intent, was this issuing of indulgences. And I know it says selling here, but the practice of selling indulgences doesn't really come about until a little bit almost toward the end of the Renaissance. Indulgences were simply if you did community service and someone signed off on your community service hours. That's sort of what the indulgences were supposed to be. You did a good deed. Here's my signature. Congratulations, you did a good deed. But same thing is, if you didn't do those community service hours and you got someone to say you did, the meaning of the indulgence loses its importance. Same thing with the meaning of your community service. Did you actually do community service? So what ends up happening is, as the church needs more money to construct these larger cathedrals, some individuals began selling these indulgences as a way to forgive sin. So instead of doing the work to relieve yourself of sin, saying your Hail Marys, doing whatever you needed to do, they would just buy their way out. All right. As education starts to spread a little bit, more and more people are becoming educated. And also because of the Black Plague, many people begin to question the absolute authority of the church. You know, if priests and popes were dying of the plague, how could they say that they've been wronged by God? So the Renaissance becomes this time of questioning everything, not just science and technology, but also religious ideology. And so that spirit of questioning kind of makes its way into some of the religious communities. This spirit of questioning is known as humanism, and it's one of the factors that are going to really start to transform the Catholic Church. All right, so early in the 1300s, we have a couple of reformers, John Wycliffe and John Huss. Wycliffe was a teacher. Huss was a priest, and they started to question some of the practices of the church. Who was the ultimate authority in Christianity? Was it the Bible? Was it the Pope? What language should the church's teachings be taught in? The vernacular, Spanish, French, English, Italian, or Latin? And of course, anytime you question the authority of anybody, they're going to react in a way that's going to suppress those questions. And the Catholic Church was no exception. Both Wycliffe and Huss were condemned for their criticisms. Wycliffe dies, but all of his teachings were burned, and Huss was actually executed, burned at the stake for heresy, being a heretic, someone who is not involved in the correct teachings of the church. So this sort of summarizes these two individuals here. And yes, Wycliffe was removed from his teaching position, but later his body and all of his work was burned. All right. Erasmus, I love this guy. He wrote this book called The Praise of Folly. And in it, he really starts to call for an end of corruption. And you'll see in your documents, well, you don't have one of his documents, but he does say something very important about Luther. So when you look at your documents, I want you to find that phrase and think about it. Okay. What caused the ideas of the Reformation to spread? It was the printing press. 1453, Erasmus's book was really the first book that kind of makes its way throughout Europe. He starts to call for church reform, which is way before the Renaissance, about 50 years before the Renaissance. But it's important to know that how the printing press is going to transform education and knowledge, right? If we take a look here, it took one man, 5 months to produce a single book by hand. That same one man in 5 months could print 500 books, okay? So really a lot of the protesting about the Catholic Church was over its corruption and its unwillingness to address those concerns. They were just like, turn a blind eye. Martin Luther is the one that really inspired the Protestant Reformation. And whether or not it was his intent to do so, we could actually look and say, hey, did this guy intend to start a new religion, or was he just like, tweeting, like a quick tweet, like the Catholic Church is corrupt, needs to be fixed, tweet, right? Or was it something more like he was angry and writing off the top of his head? That's kind of up for you to decide. All right, so there's two splits in Christianity, right? The first, of course, is the East-West Schism in 1054. That separates Eastern Orthodoxy from Roman Catholicism. This next split is going to take place in the early 1500s, called the Reformation, the Reformation, right? Reforming, fixing the church. And from that is going to come this religion known as Protestantism. Okay. And if we think of it, like if we look at the Protestant Reformation, we see the two important words there, protest and reform, right? Let's reform the church. All right. Martin Luther gets struck by lightning, becomes a priest, decides not to be a lawyer. He becomes a scholar. He's a teacher. He is an expert in the Bible. And he thinks that salvation you can't do good works and go through the sacraments and be saved. You also have to have faith. And so his whole ideology about religion was that faith is first, right? Um, and he really starts to get angry at the use of indulgences to forgive sin. And the person that he targets is a Catholic friar by the name of John Tetzel. He took it upon himself to sell indulgences to raise money to rebuild St. Peter's Cathedral in Rome. Now, whether or not Tetzel misunderstood the Pope's intent on using indulgences to raise money or not, that's questionable. But here you can see that, by Tetzel selling these indulgences, he gave people the impression that they could simply buy their way into heaven. And if you look at that quote there, that's super important. You'll see that all the time. All right, Martin Luther goes back to his room, and he literally writes 95 arguments about what's wrong with the Catholic Church. And he stomps up to the doors of the Wittenberg Church in Germany, and he nails it to the door. Now, it could be one of those things where, you do something, like you nail this to the door, and then an hour later you regret it and you go back there. But what happened was Luther went back to possibly remove the theses from the door, and they were already gone and being printed. So that's how fast information spread. All right, Luther's thought salvation was through faith. This is justification by faith. So this is going to be like a buzzword for Luther, right? He did not agree with this whole, selling of indulgences, false salvation. And he also thought that people should be able to read and interpret the Bible for themselves. So very similar to the ideas of Huss and Wycliffe and even Erasmus. This whole concept that you should be able to have a personal relationship with God was something that the Roman Catholic Church kind of resisted against. It took away their authority. How do you control people? You keep them ignorant, right? All right, 95 Theses, thanks to the printing press, spreads throughout Europe. Huge controversy. People are angry about it. People are excited about it. And the Catholic Church, of course, was like, no, you can't criticize this. You're condemned. And Luther actually gets called before the Diet of Worms. And I know you know that's an unfortunate name because you've already watched the video. And here Charles V is asking Luther to kind of defend his ideas. Like, did you say this? Luther said, yes. Do you believe this? Let me come back and I'll get back to you on that. The church wanted him to take back all of his ideas. And Luther eventually said no, that his understanding of religion comes from the Bible, and that he wants Christians to be able to study the Bible for themselves. Well, immediately you know what's going to happen to Luther at this point. He's going to be excommunicated, and his ideas are going to be, he could possibly be executed as a result of this charge of heresy. So he kind of runs away. He finds shelter with one of the German princes who sees this as an opportunity to remove himself, the prince, in other words, to remove himself from the power and authority of the church. All right. So Lutheranism actually comes out of this protest, right? It's going to be one of the first Protestant religions to break away from the Catholic Church. Now, the question you need to ask yourself is, did Luther intend to start a new religion? Was that his goal in the beginning of this whole 95 Theses thing? All right. Here are some of your reactions, right? The princes in Germany tried to, were more in favor of adopting Lutheranism because it gave them more power. All right. So Luther's two ideas: justification by faith alone. In other words, faith is what is going to, get you through everything, and then you will be saved through the grace of God. Okay. And you can see here from this map, all that dark green represents how quickly Lutheranism spread throughout Europe. All right, here again is just sort of a listing of all of Luther's message, and of course, the first Bible to be printed. When Luther was in hiding, he goes and he translates the Bible into German. Now remember, that was forbidden, only Latin, right? John Huss got in trouble for that, for translating the Bible. So did John Wycliffe. But now, with the printing press, this Gutenberg Bible in German, went crazy, spread all over the place. And if you take a look at this, you can really see how this new technology came to be, not just in terms of how the machine was created, but where all of the different parts and pieces came from. A lot of the technology comes from China, using olive oil presses from Asia, letters, the Chinese movable type, right? Paper, the introduction of paper, also from China, instead of using vellum, lambskin, or things. And then oil-based ink, which came from Europe. So this was literally a global phenomenon, all right? And you can see from this map here how quickly the use of the printing press spread. And we're going to see the number of books and the number of ideas out there transform Europe completely. It's going to go from the most illiterate area of the world to the most literate area of the world. Now, once Luther sort of set the stage for this Reformation, other people followed suit. John Calvin was another major player in the Reformation game. He was from an area in Switzerland, and his ideas were a lot different. He thought that God knew who would be saved before you were even born. This idea is called predestination. In other words, your destiny is set already. Most people thought man was born good and corrupted by the world. Calvin thought man was born evil and needed to be disciplined to be made good. So his ideas were almost opposite from every other Christian church. And while he did find a significant following in Germany and in Switzerland, it was pretty contained. And you can see here, so if you're any of these religions here, right, if you're Presbyterian or Reformed, you're descendant from the ideas of Calvinism. If you're Baptist, Methodist, or anything like that, you come from the Anglican religion. Lutheranism is pretty much on its own. All right, one last religion that emerges in this time period, and we'll talk a little bit more about this when we get into the development of absolute monarchies, and that's in England. Now, unlike the areas in Germany and Switzerland, this was purely about getting an heir to the throne. King Henry VIII was married 6 times. He wanted to divorce from his first wife because his first wife only had one daughter, Princess Anne, and he wanted to marry Anne Boleyn because he wanted a son, and the church wouldn't give him a divorce, so he decided to leave the Catholic Church and create his own religion. And he was the head of the church. So this is really kind of the story that goes on here, right? Wanted to get it annulled. And the reason for this was his first wife, Catherine, was the aunt to Charles V, the Holy Roman Emperor. So Catherine had a lot of pull in the political world. Henry VIII immediately says, well, if you're not going to give me a divorce, then I'm quitting the Roman Catholic Church and starting my own religion. He creates something called the Act of Supremacy, which basically makes him the head of the church. He ends up marrying Anne Boleyn, and he has a daughter who will eventually become Queen Elizabeth I. Right? And you can see here, one of the differences between Anglican and Lutheranism and Calvinism is Lutheranism and Calvinism were formed for religious transitions, while Anglicanism was really more of a political kind of power play, right? All right, this gives you a great comparison of all of the different, the 3 major Protestant religions that's emerged during this time period. It's important to look them over, look for similarities, look for differences. That's going to be a big player in what you need to do. Last but not least is what went on in Germany. So the Holy Roman Empire was a little bit different. And again, we'll talk a little bit more about the structure of the Holy Roman Empire when we get to absolutism. But Germany was essentially governed by local princes. So in some ways, they were still very feudal. And many German princes actually left the Roman Catholic Church, again, not for religious reasons, but for political and economic reasons. If they leave the church, they no longer have to answer to the Pope. They no longer have to follow the lead of the Pope. They now become the authority, okay? And this map is great because it shows you all of the different sects of Christianity that emerges into Europe. Think about where is it most powerful? Where do you see Anglicanism dominant? Where do you see Lutheranism, Roman Catholic? All of this is going to play a role in the development of history. The church does come back, fights back a little bit with something called the Counter-Reformation, and in it they try to figure out how do they get Protestantism to stop spreading, and then how do they win back all of those people that left. While they do address some of the abuses, they try and fix some of the problems with the clergy, including making seminary schools where priests needed to go to be trained. They abolished the sale of indulgences, but they did not allow individuals to take ownership of their own religion. They said you still need priests to interpret the word of God. All right, again, effects of the Reformation, some social, political, economic, and religious effects. You can take a look at those and think about how they are going to start to transform Europe at the end of this. All right, that's it. If you have any questions or concerns, you can always email me. Take